We now come to business questions. The shall lead the House, Jessie Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Leader of the House give us the forthcoming business?
Leader of the House.
I shall. First of all, for the convenience of the House and in view of the three important statements that are taking place today, the motion on environmental protection deposit scheme for drinks containers will not be moved today. The business for the week commencing the 20th of January includes Monday the 20th of January, general debate on the impact of food on diet and obesity, followed by general debate on financial education. The subjects for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. Tuesday the 21st of January, remaining stages of the Armed Forces Commissioner Bill, followed by motion to approve the draft deposit scheme for drinks containers, England and Northern Ireland Regulations 2024. Wednesday the 22nd of January, motion to agree a money resolution relating to the terminally ill adults end-of-life bill, followed by second reading of the Bank Resolution Recapitalisation Bill, Lords. Thursday the 23rd of January, general debate on Holocaust Memorial Day. Friday the 24th of January, private members' bills. The provisional business for the week commencing the 27th of January will include Monday the 27th of January, general debate on the creative industries. Tuesday the 28th of January, remaining stages of the Water Special Measures Bill, Lords. Wednesday 29th of January, second reading of the Arbitration Bill. Thursday the 30th of January, business to be determined by the Backbench Business Committee. Friday the 31st of January, the House will not be sitting.
Jessie Norman.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Speaker, I know that the Leader and every member of this House will, I'm sure, join me in welcoming the news overnight of a ceasefire in Gaza. Let us hope and pray that it is as effective, comprehensive and long-lasting as possible. Back at home, Mr. Speaker, all one can say is that it has been another extraordinary week for the government, though possibly not in the way that it would have wanted. We've had the government's own anti-corruption minister being named herself for corruption by another country in the face of an international investigation into embezzlement of development and other funds. We've had the unusually unlovely sight of the Chancellor of the Exchequer in a desperate search for growth that's taken her to Beijing and back. Though with precious little result, it seems. The Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales said this week that stagflation, that toxic combination of recession and inflation, is now a live risk. Even the very, very modest GDP growth reported for November was below expectations. At some point, the government's current spending splurge will doubtless start to nudge growth upwards over the coming year. But in the meantime, we will have to look forward to the grim prospect of the national insurance changes in April and the horrors of the Employment Rights Bill, which even by the government's own estimates will cost employers an extra £5 billion a year. So dire has the Chancellor's position become, Mr. Speaker, that she's been forced to ask Cabinet colleagues for ideas of growth. Given the galaxy of business talent around the Cabinet table, how can that possibly go wrong? Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has been forced not only to express full confidence in her, always a death knell, but to insist that she will remain in post for the full period of this government. Let's see how that works out. It's been extraordinary, in particular, to see her attacked by her own colleagues who have said, and I quote, "We're getting back to austerity in all but name." Luckily, the government was able to announce some good news this week in the form of the latest results of the National Wealth Fund, which has apparently generated more than 6,000 jobs and £1.6 billion in private investment over the last 6 months. Except that this announcement, Mr. Speaker, is, I am afraid, entirely disingenuous. As Lord Livermore said in a debate in the other House in October, the National Wealth Fund is in fact the UK Infrastructure Bank with a new name and a bit more capital. I know something about the UK Infrastructure Bank because I set it up when I was Financial Secretary to the Treasury in 2021. It has an absolutely world-class leadership team, and I'm not remotely surprised to see it doing so well. But the idea that its recent success is attributable to a Labour government that's done little more than rebrand it is an embarrassing joke. What has powered its success is good institutional design, a top team, tons of talented employees, and more than 4 years of hard work. One recalls the government's attempt to claim credit for £63 billion of international cash in the October Investment Summit. I know the leader is a strong believer in transparency and accountability, so I'm asking her now to have the Treasury give the House an update on what that cash, what form that investment has taken, how much it's been received, and where it is being spent. Frankly, it is more than doubtful that 3 months of post-election chaos in the government had any such effect in boosting investment, but we will see when the government publishes the numbers, as I'm sure it will. If it turns out that, like the so-called National Wealth Fund, if it turns out, as the National Wealth Fund has done, we will know that the Labour government is more than happy to take credit for some of the work of the last government at least, only provided it can put its own name on it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I too am sure that the whole House would want to welcome the developments between Israel and Gaza over the last few hours and few days, with a long overdue ceasefire and the release of hostages now hopefully looking like a real possibility, although that's still to be confirmed. This will hopefully now lead to aid, much needed aid getting in, the killing to stop and hostages being released, and I hope what will be the beginning of a long-term political solution for the region. And we'll be shortly hearing from the Foreign Secretary with further details on that. First of all, Mr. Speaker, can I just explain one of the pieces of business that I've just announced and why the government will table a money resolution relating to the terminally ill adults end-of-life bill next week. For a bill committee to consider any clauses that could have potential spending implications, the government must table a money resolution. That is not the government agreeing to fund the measures in a bill. It is purely to enable it to be debated in committee. In the case of this bill, this is one small component yet to be debated and agreed. Without this motion being agreed, that debate could not happen and that component could no longer remain in the bill. The government has taken the view that would act against our commitment to remain neutral on the bill itself. The House should debate and decide on these matters for themselves. As the House displayed at second reading, I hope that colleagues would focus on the substance and not the processes of this sensitive private member's bill. Mr. Speaker, it really has been quite incredible to watch the collective display of amnesia on the benches opposite over recent weeks. It's like the last 14 years didn't happen at all. But I see the Leader of the Opposition is out today in what has been briefed as her finally telling the truth about the Conservative record, that they didn't have a plan for growth, that they weren't honest with the British people, that they negotiated a bad Brexit deal. But it sounds like the honourable gentleman didn't quite get that memo. He didn't get the memo that said they should be honest about their record on standards either. And if he wants to compare the past government's record on losing ministers, then I'm quite happy to do that, Mr. Speaker, because Boris Johnson had 36 of his own ministers resign in 24 hours, the highest number in modern record. And Rishi Sunak, even the very nice Rishi Sunak, lost 4 of his senior ministers in his first few months, including his party chairman and the deputy Prime Minister, for breaking the ministerial code. And even when there were investigations on ministers, they were often ignored. This government has strengthened the ministerial code. We've got an advisor who's now able to initiate investigations. We brought in new rules for members of Parliament on outside interests, and we will go further. I mean, he obviously didn't get the memo either about the economy and the Conservatives' record on the economy, but instead is trying to attack our own plans, because his leader is now telling the country that they didn't have a plan for growth. And that is the truth of the situation, if we're going to be truthful, isn't it, Mr. Speaker? The Conservatives had 14 years to do something about the fundamental weaknesses in our economy, and they did nothing. In fact, they made them even worse. And what are those fundamental weaknesses? Stagnant growth, low productivity, low wages, low skills, high mortgages, high debt, poor health, poor housing, woeful transport, deep-seated inequalities, and no ambition under the previous government to gain the jobs of the future. We're beginning to tackle these deep-rooted weaknesses, and that's the truth that he and his leader should be telling the country.
Amanda Hack.
Community organisations are the backbone of many events in our towns and villages across North West Leicestershire. For the past 10 years, the Rotary Club of Ashby de la Zouch Castle has organised our annual charity Santa Fun Run in Ashby, which I've had the pleasure of taking part alongside hundreds of local people. Last week, the Rotary Club presented cheques to Loros, Rainbows and Staunton Harold Sailability. It was great to hear that this fun run has now raised over £100,000 for local charities that support residents in need. Would the Leader of the House join me in thanking the volunteers for their commitment to support our communities, and could the House be granted an opportunity to discuss further support that can be provided to volunteers and ensure that they continue to thrive?
Well, can I thank her for that? And I certainly will join her in thanking the volunteers in her constituency for what sound like fantastic local fundraising activities. I thought she was going to ask me to go on a fun run there, Mr. Speaker, to which the answer was going to be no. But otherwise, welcome her question.
Rick Goldman. Rick, Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On these benches, we have been delighted to see the recent groundswell of support across the House for Liberal Democrat policies. In particular, I would cite the support for our Youth Mobility Scheme Bill, the warm response for the Honourable Member for Cheltenham's Sunshine Bill coming tomorrow, and the House endorsing a fairer voting system. So will the government answer this clear yearning by members across the House for Lib Dem policies and provide parliamentary time to ensure these bills become law?
Well, I noticed this week, actually, Mr. Speaker, that there was further public support for the Liberal Democrats. I think they undertook a review of their general election campaign, and I understand that 90% of respondents thought her party leader's eye-catching campaign style was indeed very effective. I concur. So here's to even more bungee jumping and paddleboarding, but perhaps less of the tight wetsuits, I think. I'm not sure I really want to see those. But I'm pleased that we are able to support a number of the measures coming forward from her colleagues and the party benches, and I look forward to continuing to work constructively with Liberal Democrats across the House.
Natalie Fleet.
You're here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Junction 28 Parliamentary champion, I report that residents across Bolsover are really frustrated about the congestion. I'd ask the government for a statement on what we are doing to tackle congestion across Bolsover.
Well, she's absolutely right to raise the issue of congestion in Bolsover, and I congratulate her on doing that today. And she will know that these are a number of the issues that this government is seeking to tackle through its transport strategy and its strategy for the roads.
Andrew Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Leader of the House please ask the Secretary of State for Transport to come urgently and give a statement about the destruction of trees and vegetation along the Liberty line, which runs from Romford to Emerson Park in my constituency? There's been an extreme lack of accountability of communication from Network Rail. They haven't consulted local residents or the elected representatives, despite promising to do so in 2022 when a similar incident occurred. This is devastating for local environment, for wildlife. Cutting down healthy trees is wrong, and Network Rail need to be held account for their actions.
Well, I'm sure that many colleagues across this House would recognise that the taking and felling of healthy trees causes a great deal of local interest from our constituents wherever that occurs. So he's absolutely right to raise that. I'm not aware of the particular case that he raises, but I will ensure he does get a ministerial response.
Lee Barron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gary, a constituent of mine who lives in Thrapston, had his driving licence suspended for 6 months due to a medical condition. During this time, his employer supported him getting to and from work, but shortly before his licence was due to renew, once again due to his medical condition, his licence was suspended for a further 6 months. In light of that, and in order to continue to work, Gary applied for support from the Access to Work grant scheme. Following his application, Gary was advised that there was a 30-week wait for his Access to Work grant to be dealt with. Would the Minister agree with me that this government has prioritised supporting people who wish to continue working whenever they can, and delays to Gary's application like this are totally unacceptable, could lead to people losing their job as a result, and can we get Gary's case looked into ASAP?
Well, Gary's case sounds completely unacceptable to wait that long, and this government is committed to significantly reducing these wait times to Access to Work and other programmes, and I will ensure that a minister looks into Gary's case and it gets resolved as soon as possible.
To the Backbench Committee, Bob Black.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank the leader for protected time for the debate this afternoon, and also for the time for next week for the annual Holocaust Memorial debate. In addition to the business the leader has announced for Monday, there will be 2 Select Committee statements on behalf of the Treasury Committee and another one from the Defence Committee, very important statements, so I trust the government will seek not to put on too many statements to squeeze the time available. In addition, we always like to satisfy colleagues. There will be a debate on Thursday, the 30th of January, on PR for general elections. In terms of the Westminster Hall business, obviously next Tuesday there'll be a debate on provision of auditory verbal therapy. On Thursday, a debate on United Nations International Day of Education, and then followed by a debate on innovation in the field of rare retinal diseases. On Tuesday, the 28th, there'll be a debate on road safety for young drivers, and on Thursday, there will be then a debate on medicinal cannabis. Mr. Speaker, in addition, can I just say that the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign have organised hate marches across London over many months since the October the 7th. The Metropolitan Police have finally decided that it's unacceptable for them to form up at midday 100 yards from a synagogue, where Jewish people were threatened from going out of the Shabbat service or joining the Shabbat service. Now the Met Police have insisted that the route is away from any synagogue. But the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign have said they're going to defy the Metropolitan Police and form up outside the synagogue. So could we have a statement from the Home Secretary reinforcing the view that if this happens, those individuals will face the full force of the law, they'll face the cost of policing that demonstration and ensuring that public order is protected.
Leader of the House.
Well, can I first of all thank him for reading out a number of future debates, and I was pleased that after he raised it with me in this session last week, I was able to protect time for the debate this afternoon, and that we were able to find time in government time for a proper debate on the Holocaust Memorial Day, which is coming next week. So can I thank him, as ever, for his continued work as a very diligent and good member, chair of the Backbench Business Committee. On the matter he raises, he will know that policing and all the decisions around policing of protests and demonstrations are a matter for the police. They are operational matters, but he's absolutely right that public safety should be at the fore, and ensuring that no one is subject to anti-Semitism or hate or anything else as a result of any demonstration taking place.
Simon Offer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And actually, following on from comments slightly earlier in the chamber, many of my constituents in Stroud have written to me about their concerns about campaign finance laws, following media reports that a certain foreign billionaire is going to give very large donations. And will the government bring forward legislation that will cap individual donations and close existing loopholes and enhance the powers of the Electoral Commission?
Leader.
Well, can I thank him for that question? He's absolutely right that foreign money and foreign donations has absolutely no place in UK politics and is prohibited under current law. But there may need to be tightening of that legislation. He will know that we have a manifesto commitment to look at donations to political parties, and we will be bringing forward, probably in the next session, a bill on elections.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, I and many other members attended an oversubscribed debate in Westminster Hall, led by the Right Honourable Member for South Holland and the Deepings, on compensation for WASPy women. And it was quite clear in that debate that there is not consensus on the government side in relation to the outcome and the decision that has been made by the government. Given that the PHSO sent the report to Parliament for Parliament to decide, when will the government give time for this debate and a vote to take place?
Well, can I thank her for that question? And as she's just described, obviously a debate did take place yesterday, and there are many mechanisms for debates to be brought forward into the chamber or into Westminster Hall as they are being done. And I know that it's of great disappointment to people the decision that the government has taken, which was quite a specific decision about that report, and a feeling that in fact that many women were communicated with over that time. An apology was issued, but we didn't feel that the compensation that was being proposed was proportionate or would be a fair use of public funds at this particular time.
Michelle Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Across the UK, we have a housing crisis, and I'm pleased that the government have announced a plan to build 1.5 million more homes. But does the Leader of the House agree with me that councils have an important part to play in fixing this crisis by updating their local plans and delivering the homes that are so desperately needed, including social housing and affordable homes? Without these plans, our greenbelt spaces are actually at risk, like Wyburn Farm in my constituency, that Ashfield Independents on the District Council are failing to protect by having no plan. Does the Leader of the House agree with me that it is vital that councils use their local plans to meet the needs of the communities while also protecting our greenbelt spaces?
Well, she's absolutely right. This country faces a housing crisis, and that's why this government has an incredibly ambitious target to build 1.5 million homes over the course of this Parliament, and that's why we've changed and we're changing the national planning policy framework to make sure that local councils have very ambitious targets for their own local areas to meet this target.
Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the 2024 New Year's Honours List, Stuart Hogg was awarded an MBE. Since then, he has been charged, he has been convicted, and he has been sentenced for domestic abuse. Does the Leader of the House and Lord President of the Council agree that he should be stripped of that state honour?
Leader.
Well, can I thank him for raising this very important matter, which I know is of great concern to him and to many other members across this House. And let's just be clear that domestic abuse is abhorrent. We condemn it, and it should not be something that is seen to be or is indeed rewarded by any of us. And it's completely understandable and appropriate that he and others should raise questions about whether this honour should continue. He will know that I can't comment on individual honours themselves. However, recommendations to remove honours are considered by the Forfeiture Committee, and that's something he might want to raise with them.
Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm deeply concerned about a local decision by a hospital trust to cut the hospital bus route between Burnley Hospital and Urgent Care Centre and Blackburn Hospital, which is a huge loss to staff and patients. Will she join me in calling on transport operators, the County Council, East Lancashire Hospitals Trust, Blackburn Council and others to get round the table, find a solution, save our shuttle bus and keep this vital service running?
Leader.
Well, shuttle buses, as he describes in his constituency, especially those that go to hospitals and other local services, are absolutely vital. For too long, local areas, local communities have not had a say in the local bus routes that they need to operate in their areas. That's why we've brought forward the bus bill that is currently making its way through the other house, which will ensure that his constituents have more of a say over the bus routes in their area.
Kit Malthouse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I'm sure you know, my constituency is the source of a number of globally significant chalk streams, not least and most famously the River Test. And a number of members, as you know, were pressing the previous government to bring forward a chalk stream recovery pack to help those rivers back to their best state of health. So you can imagine our disappointment when we learned in the media before Christmas that this pack was being abandoned and subsequently confirmed in a ministerial statement that that is the case. So could we please have a statement urgently from the Secretary of State about what he is going to do to both replace that pack and bring these rivers back to the state of health that they should be in?
We've got to help Sir Charles Walker's fishing. Come on, Lena.
Well, I pride myself on knowing lots and lots of things about what the government is doing, and I have to admit to the honourable gentleman this is not something I am aware of or can offer him any particular advice on right now. But what I will assure him is that I will raise it today with the Minister, ensure he gets a full response, and if that's not sufficient, ensure the Minister comes to this House about it.
Webb.
Speaker, back in September I delivered a letter to the Home Office regarding critical concerns about our asylum hotel, about putting so many vulnerable families in such a deprived area. I've had a holding response, and so has my council, in October, but can the Leader of the House secure me a meeting with Home Office officials to discuss this vital issue?
Leader.
Well, the honourable gentleman consistently raises this issue with me of asylum hotels in his constituency. I'm really sorry to hear that he's not had a response yet from the relevant minister. I will ensure he does get that response and gets the meeting he's asked for.
Jim Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Leader of the House, a different question, and if I can ask you this, and it's rather disturbing. I would like to raise a question regarding the publication of the House magazine, which on page 14 begins an article entitled State of the Union. Within this article there are depictions of the United Kingdom, and each country has their flag. The flag over Northern Ireland in the House magazine, contrary to what it is in the rest of the world of course, is the flag of the Republic of Ireland as opposed to the Union flag or the Ulster banner. This is, I believe, absolutely outrageous and must be corrected in a suitably clear manner. The flag of our nation, my nation, is precious. When I look at the red of St Patrick's Cross in the background of that flag, I think of those whose lives were given with their blood in defence of Northern Ireland and across this great nation. When I see the publication's mistake, it grieves me to see how we are regarded by so many. I wish to make it clear, we don't live under the flag of the Republic of Ireland, despite the view of those who don't attend here, and yet whose influence, it seems, Mr. Speaker and Leader of the House, is greater than some of those in the chamber. The flag of Northern Ireland is the Ulster banner or the Union flag, and it means something to many people who allow this disgraceful. We can't allow this disgraceful incident to pass. I would ask, through you, Leader of the House, to Mr. Speaker as well, not simply for a correction, but highlight that it would be also seen that perhaps the House magazine staff need to be educated on the basics of the State of the Union, geographically as well, if they understand even the wee simple things, when purporting to be a political magazine over the business of this House. And I'd ask the Leader of the House this question, to show her displeasure and with this depiction, and could I ask the confirmation of that correction is done immediately, and that geographic training for staff at the House magazine would take place. Thank you.
Okay, Leader.
Well, I absolutely would share his displeasure and thank him for raising this with me today. This is a very disturbing mistake for the House magazine to have made. Obviously, he'll be aware I'm not responsible for the House magazine, but I hope the editors and the editorial board are watching this exchange right now and can offer the honourable gentleman a full explanation, a full apology, and put this situation right with immediate effect.
Can also say, as I've been brought in like the Leader, I want to reassure it is not a publication of the House, but it does trade on the House name, also uses the coat of arms of the House. I think there's questions to be asked. I think it's a very important question that's been raised by the member, and between the Leader and myself we will look to see what we can do and what should happen next. Alistair Strafford.
Right across my constituency, there is plenty of support for this government's ambition to do far better when it comes to transitioning to clean, green, renewable energy. But there's also a lot of frustration when they see new houses going up and we're not making use of the rooftops and we're not making sure that they've got the highest energy efficiency standards. So can we have a statement from the Housing Minister about how we can make sure we do far better than the last government about being ambitious on our requirements on developers?
Leader.
Well, absolutely. He raises a really important point, and solar power panels on new homes will be a vital component in meeting our clean energy superpower ambitions. He will be aware that the previous government actually pulled back from adding that into the new building regulations. Had they done so, we would have already now had a much greater level of solar energy coming into the grid, and that's something that we will, and we are already doing, putting right.
Claire Young.
Post offices provide vital services in our rural communities, such as banking. However, in my Thornbury and Yate constituency, there are concerns about the future of the post office in Tiddington Community Shop following the closure of its partner post office at Cromwell, or the announcement it will close at the end of February. So, will the Leader of the House agree to give us a debate in government time on how we can support community post offices in the future?
Leader.
Well, absolutely. The issue of community post offices comes up in these sessions very, very regularly, and I know it is a matter of considerable importance to this House. I do think it would make actually a very good backbench business debate, and I can see the chair of the committee is still in his place. She's right to raise these issues. I know that colleagues are concerned about plans to close all the current Crown post offices as well. She should know that no decisions have actually been made on that, and that is something that I would encourage colleagues to raise very strongly in the House and with ministers, and indeed with the post office themselves.
Devendra Mishra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sadly, many places were impacted by flooding across England in recent days. The ground floor of Meadow Mill in my constituency was flooded on New Year's Eve, which meant that residents in 213 apartments were not only stranded, but left without water, electricity or heating. I want to thank all emergency service workers and Stockport Council staff for supporting the residents. So can I ask the Leader for a debate in government time on the impact of flooding on insurance premiums and service charge costs for apartment block residents?
Leader.
Well, absolutely. As a near neighbour of the Honourable Gentleman, I'm well aware of Meadow Mill and all the trauma and difficulties that they suffered under the recent flooding, as many other colleagues' constituencies were affected as well. This government inherited, I have to say, really poor flood defence systems. That's why we've put in place a flood resilience task force, but he's also right to raise the issues of the insurance costs and others, and I will ensure the House is kept constantly updated on flooding and its impacts.
Dame Caroline Downage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I wonder if the Leader of the House could use her great influence to improve the tone and quality of ministerial responses in this place. On Monday, the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology responded to my question on behalf of the creative industries who are very worried about the government's consultation on AI and copyright by telling me that I don't understand what a consultation is. Mr. Speaker, I hate to admit it, but I'm long enough in the tooth now to say that I genuinely do understand what a consultation is and how to recognise one that does not appear to be genuine and that has a foregone conclusion. The point is, we need to be able to articulate questions on behalf of our constituents and on behalf of sectors which contribute so much to the UK economy and receive a response which has dignity and respect at the very heart of it. I'm sure she agrees. This place should be no place for mansplaining.
Leader.
Well, can I first of all thank her for all the really brilliant work that she does as chair of the Select Committee on behalf of our creative industries, and I know that the topic that she raised around AI and copyright is to the absolute fore of the issues that the creative industries are concerned about. Yeah, I'm happy to apologise on behalf of any minister that may have inadvertently not got the appropriate tone. I'm sure in the case of the Secretary of State for for Science and Technology, who I know respects the Honourable Lady greatly, had not meant to cause any offence, and I'm sure it was meant in a humorous way, and it's obviously not how it's been taken, but I will ensure that her comments are passed back.
Andy Backday.
Something unending roadworks in Rosendale and Darwin cause massive disruption to residents and businesses. Lane rental schemes where companies are charged for times their works occupy the road can be a game changer, yet highways authorities like Lancashire seem to be unwilling to use the powers available to them. So would the Leader agree to a debate in government time on how we can get the action that we need to free up our roads?
Through the House.
Well, I think that we can all identify with the plight that he raises of unnecessary and badly coordinated roadworks taking place in our constituencies, and all the congestion and disruption that cause is for our constituents. The government does want to see more local authorities like his introduce lane rental schemes, and I will certainly ensure that the Minister supports his call for that in his constituency.
Tom Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last week I met with representatives from the Environment Agency at Knaresborough Lido, where last year was granted bathing water status thanks to the hard work of local campaigners and former MP Andrew Jones. The Environment Agency said that unlike other rivers that they were looking at with sewage and pollution issues, where it's usually due down to adverse weather events and heavy rain, the issue at the River Nid looks like it's down and is continuous regardless of the weather, and is particularly bad when there's dry spells, which leads them to believe that this is down to housing developments that might be inadvertently or deliberately in some cases tapping into existing sewage networks. So will the Leader of the House bring forward and speak with her relevant government department colleagues to ensure that when we're looking at the issue of water quality, we also look at how housing development impacts on it?
Through the House.
Well, he's absolutely right to raise that as an issue, and I know it's something that is core to the conversations happening between the Department for the Environment and the Department for Housing and Local Government as well. That nature, including water supply, sewage and so on, is absolutely vital when we consider housing plans as well. But I will ensure that he gets a particular reply about the case that he raises.
Barry Gardner.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the good news is that 185 apartments around Wembley Stadium in my constituency are now ready to occupy. The bad news is that nobody can move into them because the building safety regulator has sat on their Gateway 2 applications for 6 months and their Gateway 3 applications for 2 months. We have a housing shortage. Can the Leader of the House ensure that we have a debate on the delays and dysfunctionality of the building safety regulator?
Leader of the House.
Well, can I thank him for that question? He will be aware that through the Building Safety Act brought in by the previous government, we do now have a building safety regulator, and it is right that in the context in which that regulator came about following the Grenfell Tower, that we do ensure that buildings are signed off as safe and are able to be signed off as safe before they can be occupied and sold. But I'm happy to look into this particular case and why it's taken so long for that to happen.
Bradley Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We face an emergent healthcare crisis in towns and communities across the country as demand for non-surgical aesthetic treatments, including Botox and dermal fillers, rise. This is particularly fuelled by social media and societal pressures on young people. This often takes place in unregulated high street environments and places pressure on the NHS. When will the government bring forward legislation to introduce a mandatory licensing regime, and will the government allow for a debate in government time on the floor of this House?
Leader.
Well, he raises a very important topic which I know affects many of our constituents, and we've seen a number of very high-profile cases lately where this has gone terribly wrong in a sector that is completely unregulated, as he says. I know there are there have been plans in place for a while to bring forward the measures that he described. I will ensure the House is updated when they are ready, but in the meantime that he gets a ministerial response.
David Burton-Sampson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. London Southend Airport has taken time to bounce back from the pandemic. However, I'm delighted to see over recent months a number of new routes have been established, as EasyJet announced its new base at the airport, and just in the last week, Eastern Airways has announced the new route to Newquay. Does the Leader of the House agree with me that this is positive for the local economy and a sign of growing business confidence on the back of the government's mission to kickstart economic growth? And will she join me on a visit to the airport to hear more about their future plans?
Well, can I join him in commending the great efforts of Southend Airport and himself and other local leaders in really taking this airport from strength to strength over the last year, even in recent years. I know that I think EasyJet is also looking at opening a base there soon, and it is clear that this airport is now going from strength to strength, something that his constituents, I know, will strongly support.
Ellie Chowns.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Office for Environmental Protection published its annual report today on our progress in protecting the environment, and unfortunately it's not good news. We are off track on 20 out of 43 targets. Only 5 out of their 52 recommendations last year have been implemented. And the report, although it deals with the period under the previous government, shows that progress was slowing on nature protection in that year. Now, the government's announced that they will be reviewing the Environmental Improvement Plan. Can the Leader of the House tell us when that review will be published? And can we have a minister come to the House to make a statement on how the government will turn this around to protect nature?
House.
Well, she's absolutely right that the report she identifies shows how little was being done to protect nature, despite many announcements to the contrary under the previous government. Nature protection is a core part of our clean energy mission, and that's why the DEFRA department are core to that mission. It will take a while to turn these things around, as she will be aware, but we are committed to doing that. I will ensure that she and the House are updated regularly on where things are up to, and certainly when these reports are being responded to.
Andrew Pakes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We are a proud cathedral city. Everyone in Peterborough has a story to tell about our cathedral, whether it's attending a carol service, going to a graduation, a community event, or even remembering the Foreign Secretary singing as a chorister when he was a schoolboy. For over 900 years, our cathedral's been there for us. And now, in the words of the very Reverend Chris Dolliston, our Dean, we need to be there for the cathedral because it has a funding crisis. Can I ask the Leader of the House if she will join me in wishing well the cathedral in its appeal, and if she'll ensure that we have time in this House to debate these wonderful, wonderful assets, which are not just local of importance, but national assets to our heritage.
Leader of the House.
Well, the Honourable Gentleman is a really fantastic champion for his constituency of Peterborough, and I strongly welcome his contribution today and fully support what he says about both Peterborough Cathedral but also the cathedrals of this country and what a national asset they are. He will be aware the government has a range of support programmes for places of worship in place, such as the listed places of worship scheme and the church's conservation trust. And there is a debate actually in Westminster Hall on listed places of worship scheme next week, which you may want to participate in. But can I join him finally in strongly supporting the campaign for Peterborough Cathedral to raise the funds it needs?
Graham Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's nearly 3 years since the passing of the Down Syndrome Act, and yet the guidance which brings it to life has not yet been implemented. People with Down syndrome really do need support in areas like healthcare, education and employment. So could we have a debate in government time on support for people with Down syndrome and ensuring that this vital piece of legislation is fully enacted?
Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely. Can I thank him for raising this issue, which has not been raised with me before. The Down Syndrome Act was an important piece of legislation recognising the amazing contribution that those with Down syndrome make to our society and to our country, but also recognising the challenges and the extra support that they need to flourish. I will find out for the Honourable Gentleman where the implementation of that Act is up to and make sure that he's updated.
Melanie On.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I wonder if the Leader of the House will join me in congratulating Grimsby's Green Futures on their very successful wassail last Saturday. And perhaps you could also direct me to some time in the House when we will have the opportunity to celebrate some great English traditions such as Morris dancing, folk music and indeed wassailing.
Leader of the House.
I thought the Honourable Lady was going to ask me to do some wassailing there for a moment, and I was going to need to look it up and get some training. But I will absolutely support her in recognising and promoting these great traditions of England and all the great work that's happening in Grimsby to keep these traditions alive. And I'm sure it would make a very good topic for a debate, actually.
Alison Bennett. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm also delighted that wassailing's been mentioned because there was a wassail in my village of Hurstpierpoint last Saturday. Constituents across mid-Sussex, though, really enjoy and appreciate having access to our coastline and our seas, and they rightly expect that our oceans are clean and healthy. The UN Global Ocean Treaty is the world's only roadmap to protecting at least a third of the world's oceans by 2030. The UK has committed to ratifying the treaty, but the next step is for the government to introduce a short bill to pass it into UK law. Can the Leader of the House please update us on when the government plans to introduce this legislation? Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely. And she, I'm sure, like me, received many specially written Christmas cards urging me to consider introducing this legislation. So it's something I'm very much aware of. But she'll know that we are committed to ratifying this agreement, and legislation will be brought forward in due course. I can't offer her a more particular timetable than that, but it will be brought forward in due course, well in time for when we need to ratify the treaty.
Liz Twist.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, can I invite the Leader of the House, and in fact all honourable members, to join me and Samaritans on Monday for a brew? Blue Monday may have been invented by the travel industry to encourage us to book holidays in January, but Samaritans have converted it to Brew Monday, when we can highlight the importance of talking to each other in an effort to prevent suicide. So can we have a debate in government time on the National Suicide Prevention Strategy and look at what else we can do to prevent suicide?
Leader of the House.
Well, can I absolutely join her in the efforts to rebrand Blue Monday as Brew Monday? I'm sure that's something we can all participate in and support. And she's absolutely right to highlight the issues around suicide and mental health support. And I know it's something that is a real personal priority of the Health Secretary, and I'm sure he will keep the House updated of progress.
John Lamont.
Thank you very much. Centre Parks is planning an exciting new development in my constituency in the Scottish borders. It's going to be the first centre park in Scotland. It's going to bring £350 million of investment and create 1,200 extra jobs for the area. However, due to underinvestment by the SNP government in Edinburgh, there are concerns about the capacity of the road network, particularly the A7 through Selkirk, to deal with the extra visitors and tourists. So would the Leader of the House allow a time for a debate to consider how rural communities can attract greater investment when there are concerns about the adequacy of the transport system and the road network?
Leader of the House.
Well, again, I thought I was being invited to Centre Parks there, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am very partial to a water slide, should colleagues ever want to invite me to a Centre Parks in the future. But he raises a very serious point, which is where this investment, much needed investment, and these great new facilities or services are coming into a constituency, we do need to ensure that we've got the infrastructure and the roads to support that. The SNP government in Scotland has just had a record agreement in the budget, so they really do have no excuse to not support the road that he's talking about.
Joe Morris.
Community efforts from Hexham Rotary Club and the Hexham Wombles Litterpick. The old bus station site in the town of Hexham, my constituency, remains an eyesore, and the developer is sadly slow walking on redevelopment. So please can I ask the Leader of the House if we can have a debate in government time on the need to make best use of disused sites on Market Town High Streets, how we can improve them and how we can boost those town centres that are so crucial to our economy.
Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely. Breathing new life into our high streets and town centres is a real priority for this government. After years of neglect and decline, it is something that is much needed. We will be bringing forward later in this session an English devolution bill, which will have within it new powers for communities to have the right to buy derelict buildings like the one that he outlines, and I hope that will help him and his constituents to take back control.
Pete Wishart.
Speaker, Scottish Labour members like nothing more than to get to their feet, to drone on about the Scottish Government, asking questions of the Minister that has got absolutely nothing to do with them. So can we therefore have a debate about the spectacular fall in the Scottish Labour in the polls? We could perhaps determine whose fault that is. Is it the hapless Anas Sarwar, or is it because the Scottish people have seen a Labour government in action?
The House.
Well, I don't think it's members on this side droning on, I have to say, to the honourable gentleman. And in fact, none of them have raised such a point here today. But I think we would all very strongly welcome a debate in this House on the performance of the Scottish Government and whether they are really delivering for the Scottish people, because they've now got the powers, they've now got the funds, and they've got no excuses.
Clyrith Entwistle.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I associate myself with the remarks of the leader in welcoming the news of a ceasefire, a long overdue ceasefire? My constituent, Dr. Ryan Soden, has been working tirelessly to support survivors of this crisis, and I also commend the work of the Bolton Council of Mosques for their unwavering advocacy for peace, and this House should reflect their determination. Can I ask the Leader of the House to now work with colleagues across government to get vital aid into Gaza before more lives are tragically lost?
Leader of the House.
Well, can I thank her for raising this issue? And I know that this is something that she has been raising consistently in this House, and it is a matter of deep concern and importance to her. I think we are all very much welcoming the developments in Israel and Gaza over recent hours and days, and we all want to see that any ceasefire is a long-lasting one, that the hostages are released, and crucially, as she says, that we then very quickly surge in the much-needed aid into Gaza, and we can start getting people back living there safely and with water and food.
To be helpful to members, I just want to indicate I'm going to run this session until 1:45. It would be very helpful, therefore, if we could have short questions and short answers so I can get as many members as possible in. Luke Evans.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Leicestershire was one of the significant areas hit with flooding. Fortunately, my constituency is relatively okay, bar pockets like Shenton, Barwell, Sheepy Magnet and Witherley. Part of the problem they have is they're too small to hit the government's targets and often don't get flooded into the houses, just all the roads and the connectors to get the funding. So would the Leader of the House write to the DEFRA Secretary to say when he looks at the formula, would he consider small communities that are isolated and cut off, that don't have breaches into the house, because that's fundamentally very difficult to solve?
Leader of the House.
Well, look, he's absolutely right. I think the issues with climate change, as we're seeing, and the changes in global weather, I think the incidents of flooding are more often, they're more acute, they're often very hyper-localised rather than widespread. And I think he makes a very compelling point about the impact not just on homes, but on local infrastructure, where we get these very localised flooding issues. And I shall certainly make sure that that is considered by the Secretary of State.
Bayo Alaba.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Please, can I take this moment to invite the Leader of the House to commend the hard work of the One Love project in my constituency of Southend, East and Rochford. The One Love project is a community-run, non-referral service that supports those most in need, including the street homeless. Not only do they provide food, but also warm showers, clothing, clothes washing facilities, sleeping bags, and the list goes on. Above all, it is the welcoming, non-judgmental approach of Sharon and her fabulous team there that makes this work most inspiring. I would also like to extend an invitation to visit the One Love project, to see their hard work firsthand, and more broadly to sunny Southend and Rochford to experience all it has to offer, from its coastlines to cultural heritage landmarks, such as Rochford Town Square and the medieval St Nicholas Church in Great Rakery. Thank you.
Well, he paints a very compelling picture of Southend and Rochford, and I will certainly be happy to visit there one day. But he also raises the One Love project and the amazing work that they do on homelessness, and this country relies greatly on organisations like the One Love project. This government is committed to tackling the root causes of homelessness and ensuring that the funding is there to support people in the darkest time of their lives.
Joshua Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The families of British citizens who are murdered abroad are not the same as the rights of those victims of homicide in the UK. Often families who are coping with trauma and that news must arrange to pay for their own translators so they can speak to local police, read local legal documents, and all of that whilst they're trying to negotiate the criminal justice system of a foreign jurisdiction. These families deserve the rights, the same rights as those victims of homicide in the UK, but at the moment they're not even entitled, forced entitled, to a family liaison officer from the police. So could the Leader of the House make time for a debate on this so we can try and build a consensus across the House on a way forward?
House. Well, can I thank him for raising such an important issue and for giving me notice that he was going to do so. The Ministry of Justice is working with the Victims Commissioner and others in the sector to explore how families in the situation that he described can be better supported with the information and the financial assistance that he needs, and I will ensure he's updated on that.
Gareth Snell.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Minton tiles in our central lobby, the plates in our tea room, and even the chandelier in the Pugin guest room are all wonderful examples of Staffordshire craftsmanship. And yet, at the moment, we're seeing creeping numbers of foreign ceramic imports into this place in place of British products. So could I ask the Leader of the House in her capacity as the government's rep on the House of Commons Commission and the Restoration and Renewal Board what the government's policy is to ensuring that the artisans and creators from all corners of our nation are showcased in this place?
Leader of the House.
Well, he is a very, very strong advocate for craftsmanship and ceramics of Stoke and of Staffordshire more widely, and he's given us some good examples there. And I know I don't want to have dinner alongside the honourable gentleman sometimes because he inspects all the ceramics and all the things that we're using to eat our dinner, and rightly so. I will absolutely raise the points that he has raised with the House authorities and ensure that we're doing more to support our great craftsmanship of this country.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yesterday, along with members across the House, I attended the launch of the latest report from the Open Doors charity, highlighting Christian persecution in many countries. Many of those countries listed on their watch list are countries that the UK has close relations with. Could the leader find time for a debate in government time to debate the Open Doors report and see what greater influence the UK can bring to bear on these rogue nations?
Leader of the House.
Well, he raises a really important report and some very important topics as well, and I will ensure that if he doesn't get a full ministerial reply about that, it is considered as an important topic. You might want to raise it in an adjournment debate or elsewhere as well.
Maureen Burke.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I was deeply saddened this week to see new data from the ONS and Healthy Coast, which has ranked my constituency of Glasgow North East as having the lowest life expectancy of anywhere in the UK. My constituency also has a higher than average poverty rate. There is undoubtedly a link between these two stats. Would the Leader of the House consider holding a debate on government time to explore the factors which contribute to low life expectancy, including the impact of poverty, to help my constituents to live longer, happier and more financially secure lives?
Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely. The the link between health inequality and poor health outcomes and poverty are absolutely clear, and eradicating them is at the heart of our health mission, but also at the heart of what this government is seeking to do, because we recognise that only by sharing the prosperity of growth around the country, by tackling the core roots of poverty, and by seeing health as a public health issue and as an economic issue as well, will we actually tackle some of these core challenges.
Tessa Munt.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Many of us will remember the devastation in rural England in 2001 with the outbreak of foot and mouth disease. I'm pleased the government's restricted commercial imports of susceptible animals and commercial imports of susceptible animals and personal imports of animal products. But yesterday I was reminded by James, a farmer in my area, that last time our high biosecurity standards saw the dipping of vehicles and footwear. Can we have a debate focusing on the movement of people and vehicles into the UK from affected areas, be they by road, rail, ferry or air, to prevent transmission of the virus, and particularly to install large notices at the airports and incoming and transit passengers that they should declare those food products?
Leader of the House.
Well, the government will do whatever it takes to protect farmers from the risk posed by foot and mouth. We've already brought in restrictions on animal products from Germany, and we will not hesitate to add additional countries to that list. And I want to reassure her that there are currently no cases here in the UK. We did have an urgent question on this matter yesterday, but I will ensure the House is constantly updated on any further developments.
Can I just encourage all members to perhaps reduce the length of their questions by 50%, and then everyone will get in. Lee Pitcher.
Madam Deputy Speaker, last Friday I had the privilege of meeting with the Foyer and the Doncaster Housing for Young People to discuss how we can best support 16 to 25-year-olds who are homeless or vulnerably housed. Having experienced homelessness as a child, I know just how challenging that can be, and therefore really welcome the measures in the bill. Will the Leader of the House join me in congratulating the vital work of those organisations, Doncaster Housing for Young People, and praise the measures in the Renters' Rights Bill?
Leader of the House.
Well, absolutely. The Renters' Rights Bill, which actually the party opposite voted against this week, shockingly so, will see the end of Section 21 no-fault evictions, which is an important measure, along with many others, to ending homelessness in this country and tackling the root causes, and I strongly support his support for the bill.
Richard Bergen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think that one thing we can agree on across this House is that life in our constituencies and across the country is enriched by the work of volunteers. I think in my own constituency are the volunteers of Nano FC, Garforth Town Football Club, LS14 Trust in Seacroft, Chapel FM and Catching Hales, to mention just a few. Every December, it's International Volunteer Day. So will the Leader of the House consider guaranteeing an annual debate on international volunteers so we can celebrate in this House the work that volunteers do in our constituencies?
Leader of the House.
Well, it gets raised with me very often, Madam Deputy Speaker, because volunteers do absolutely enrich our communities, our society. Without them, we would not have the country and the communities that we have. And I would very much look at the suggestion that we have an annual debate to celebrate their contribution to our constituents.
Alice MacDonald.
Madam Deputy Speaker. Currently there is no statutory right to time off work for fertility treatment, which causes so much stress to so many people. I know many employers do offer this voluntarily, which I welcome, but does the Leader of the House agree with me and campaigners such as Fertility Matters at Work that this is really important to support people who seek fertility treatment, and can she update us on the timetable for the Employment Rights Bill so we have a chance to discuss reproductive health in the workplace?
Leader of the House.
Well, as she'll know, I'm very sympathetic to the question that she asked, which was one of the reasons that I ensured that members of Parliament could get proxy votes for fertility treatment, something that I know many members will take advantage of. We do have the Employment Rights Bill going through committee at the moment. It will soon be coming back to the House for report stage, and I think she should raise these matters during the course of the passage of that bill.
Hazel Caliscan.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy
Speaker. My constituents in Barking were delighted to hear the news that the train operator C2C would be brought into public ownership later this year, a decision that will see more reliable train service. C2C are currently refurbishing the Barking station in my constituency, but the works have suffered delay after delay. Can I ask the Leader of the House if she would seek a statement from the government about the public transport infrastructure that might be affected by the government's decision to nationalise plans, to give my constituents reassurance that the plans for refurbishment will get done and will be delivered soon? Thank you.
Leader of the House.
Well, the government's plans to take back our railways into public ownership are plans that will improve reliability, improve investment, improve the passenger experience, and so I can assure her that those plans will be of great benefit to her constituents in the way that she describes.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Next week, the Commission for Palliative Care and End-of-Life Care will start taking oral and written evidence, and I really hope members will ask their specialists and their constituents to participate in that. Will she ensure, when the Commission reports, that we can have a debate on the findings of the Commission so that we can optimise palliative and end-of-life care?
Leader of the House.
Well, can I thank her for all her campaigning on this issue and the important matters of palliative care, which so many in our country rely on at the very worst stages of their lives. I will ensure the House is constantly updated on these matters, which I know are of particular importance to the Secretary of State for Health.
James Naish.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Several homes in my constituency were badly flooded. There are over 500 homes flooded internally across the East Midlands, and I want to express my sympathy to all those impacted. But it was especially concerning to me to hear about the verbal abuse that was being directed towards flood wardens who are working exceptionally hard to protect their communities. Does my honourable friend agree with me that this is unacceptable, and will she ensure that this House considers how best to protect these fantastic volunteers?
Leader of the House.
Well, it's completely unacceptable that volunteers acting as flood wardens in these very difficult times are on the wrong end of abuse from anybody. It's completely unacceptable, and I will ensure that these matters are raised in government and that we send a very strong signal that this will not be tolerated and action will be taken against the perpetrators.
Melanie Ward.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. 30 years on from the Disability Discrimination Act, there are still train stations in my constituency which are not fully accessible, including Burnt Island Station and Cowden Beast Station. This creates unacceptable daily barriers for disabled people, families with prams and buggies, and those with heavy luggage. Does the Minister agree with me that we need support from the Access for All Fund and action from Network Rail, Transport Scotland and ScotRail so these stations are made accessible? And will she make time for a debate on railway accessibility?
Well, the issue of accessibility on our railways is raised many times with me in these sessions and across the House because, let's be honest, the accessibility of many of our stations, like that in her constituency, is deeply inadequate for those either with buggies or in wheelchairs or whatever else. The Rail Minister is carefully considering the best approach to the Access for All programme, but I will ensure the House is regularly updated.
Hannah Gerheld.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Establishing joined-up health hubs in towns such as Saltash and Liskeard could bring routine services from across the Tamar closer to home, easing pressure on Derriford Hospital. While recent debates have addressed broader rural healthcare issues, will the Leader of the House provide government time to discuss integrated, localised healthcare can better serve rural communities by relocating patient routine care from hospitals to a community setting?
House.
Well, absolutely. She will know that we inherited a National Health Service on its knees, as she describes. But as part of our mission and our endeavours to turn that around, she will know that getting care back into communities, early intervention, prevention and primary services is absolutely critical, and I hope this will better serve her constituents in the future.
Luke Meyer.
Speaker. My constituent Angie has raised with me the very serious issue of shortages in ADHD medication. Her son is really struggling in school, and he's not the only one, as these shortages have been affecting the country since 2023. Can the Leader of the House set out the government's position on this issue and whether we can make sure that this medication is made available?
Leader of the House.
Well, I know the Department for Health is working hard with industry and NHS England to help resolve the supply issues in ADHD medicines, which is actually a global problem, and I will ensure that he and the House is updated with any progress.
Kirstine Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. In March last year, honourable members in this place discussed the need for improved PPE for women, an issue brought forward during the pandemic. ARCO Professional Services, who have a safety training centre in my constituency, recognised this need and told me during a recent visit that they are trialling women's sizes as standard. Will the Leader of the House allocate government time to debate legislating for the mandatory provision of women-specific and inclusive PPE?
Leader of the House.
Well, can I thank her for raising this matter? And despite great progress in recent decades, we are all still well aware that too many products in this country, or products in the world, are designed by men for men, and that we still need to address some of these issues. And I'm sure this would make a very good topic for a debate.
David Pinto-Dushinsky.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Conservative Council that ran Barnet for 20 years left Hendon's roads in a dreadful state with terrible potholes and pavements. Since they were elected, the Labour Council that took over has been investing record amounts in tackling the large backlog the party opposite left. And I am very pleased that the government this week announced it would invest £1.6 billion in fixing potholes this year, a huge increase over the previous government. Will my right honourable friend grant a debate on how we can put our foot down and drive forward the government's plans as quickly as possible to help motorists in Hendon?
Leader of the House.
Well, he's absolutely right. We have a plan to fix the potholes of this country with a huge level of investment going in, and we now want councils like that in Hendon to get on with using those funds to fix the problem of potholes.
Final question, Catherine Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Unregulated and uninsured souped-up electric scooters have been a real source of antisocial behaviour in Derby. Our Police and Crime Commissioner, Colin Dwelly, has been working with Derbyshire Constabulary to clamp down on illegal e-scooters, seizing and disposing of over 200 since November. Could the Leader of the House ensure that a Home Office and Transport Minister meets with me and other members who've been raising these concerns to ensure we're pushing forward with regulation and enforcement in relation to e-scooters?
Leader of the House.
Well, can I thank her for raising this issue? I know it blights many communities. We are taking action to deal with e-scooters, making it easier for these vehicles to be seized where necessary, and other measures that are coming to tackle antisocial behaviour as well.
I thank the Leader of the House for those responses. I'm going to allow a few moments whilst the front benches switch over. If anybody wishes to leave, please do so quickly and quietly.